Mhm. All right, good morning. I am taping. Today is Thursday, the 16th of March. As of right now, I have nobody on with me, which is totally fine. But if somebody comes on, I'll quick jump out so I can jump on and let them in. Today, I'm going to change this. Sorry, I'm not going to go over chapter 7. And the reason I'm not going to go over it is I went back and I was rereading it last night. And it even said in the last chapter, you learned some DOM skills, and now they're going to present additional DOM skills. So I think we'll wait, we'll put 6 and 7 together. And for right now, we're only going to worry about chapters 4 and 5 for your test. So you won't have any homework for chapter 7. All right, I'll have to amend this thing. So this will say your homework for 4 and 5 will be due on the 26th. And then your homework for 6 and 7 will be due, I think it's the 3rd, if or the 2nd, I don't know. Let's see. That'll be due the 2nd, your homework for 6 and 7. So hopefully that made sense. All right. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go over some of the problems in chapter 4. Chapter 5 just has you go and do an exercise where you will have to go in and do some debugging. I'm going to let you do that on your own. All right, I showed you a lot of debugging yesterday. So I'm going to start with these extra exercises extra, and we'll look at the 3 things that are here. All right, now hopefully you've already seen this, but if you haven't, if I open this, all right, and I open the index file, right now I can put something in here and nothing happens. Okay, that makes sense. The point though is we already have the HTML in there that builds our interface. So you don't have to worry about that here. So let's talk about what's in here just a little bit. All right. First of all, I'm going to knock this down so it's over 2 lines. I don't want anything to be where it's going off the screen. There, that's good. All right, so what do we have here? Well, our title, our link to our spreadsheet, etc., or to our CSS file. But I want to concentrate on what's right here. We're supposed to be able to enter an amount in, all right, an amount of change that goes from 0 to 99, all right? And then we're supposed to tell the most optimal way of creating that change using quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies. All right. I went back. I'm not going to lie to you. I went back and I looked at the author's key for this. I don't like the way it was written. So I'm going to go and do my own writing in here. And hopefully it'll make sense. All right. Now, there's different ways of doing this. Just so you know, there are different ways of doing this. All right. And I'm going to show you what I'm going to do in here is I'm not going to do every one of these problems. Okay. But we'll look at them and because typically there's an easier way to do it and there's a harder way to do it. So again, this is the interface. So it's going to have here, as it says, there's just an H1 that says change calculator. All right. In fact, let's take one more look at it. All right. And then this is the first label, enter the amount of change, and then there's a text box. Then there's next to that, there's a button. So this is all going to be on one row. All right. Then we're going to have label, text box, label, text box, label, text box, label, text box. These 4 text boxes that you see right here are all read only. All right. So when we take a look at what we have here, you'll notice that each one of them has been disabled because we don't want to be able to manually go in there and figure out our answer. We want to put the answer in ourselves. All right, let's go in, and as we've always been doing, first of all, I'm going to leave that, close it right here. So it says, do I want to save the file? No. All right, but let's come in here and let's open this whole project up in code. All right. And just because it's a good idea to do this, let's come in and right away, as we've always done, let's make a JS folder. And let's come in here and let's make a CSS folder. All right, then I'm going to drag my CSS file into my CSS folder, or try that again. It's why I don't like working with this stuff inside of code here. So I'm going to do it here. So I'm going to grab my make change CSS and drag it into the CSS folder. So I'm going to move that, and I'm going to grab my JavaScript file and move it into my JS folder. All right. Now it's looking a little bit more the way we're used to seeing our projects work. So in CSS, there's our make change, and I'm not going to say or do anything with it. This we were given. All right. But now this is our make change JS folder. You may or may not remember, this is a shortcut right here. So that's the only thing that we're given in here is this shortcut. That's it. All right. Now, as I've already mentioned to you, there are different ways of writing this. Okay. So for instance, I could come in fact, let's do that. For now, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna comment it out. All right. And I'm going to show you a way of doing it that I'm not going to say it's going to be easy or hard. In fact, let's not do that. What I was going to show you was going back and doing it the old-fashioned way. And we should be, for lack of better words, doing this the quote right way, unquote. All right. So what we want to do is we want to make change. Now, just so you know, let's just grab an amount. Let's grab an amount right here. So I'm making this up literally right in front of you. And let's say, I don't know, let's say that I want to come in here and say that the amount that I want to use is 93 cents. All right, cents. All right. Well, if I put in 3/4, that's equal to what? That's equal to 75 cents. And 93 minus 75 is going to give me 18 cents. So if I add 1 dime onto there, I am now up or equal to 85 cents. And now it looks like I've got 8 cents left. So if I add 1 nickel, now I am up to 90 cents. And finally, if I had 3 pennies, now that should be 93 cents. So in other words, when I put this amount right here into that text box, when I put that amount into the text box, what I want to appear in the other text boxes are 3, 1, 1, and 3. All right. And I just showed you the logic, so to speak, in how we do this. All right. So that's fine. So how do we do this? So let's come in here, and I don't know if you'd call it necessary or unnecessary, but I'm going to create some more constants here. So I'm going to make one const I'm going to call quarter value, and I'm going to set that equal to 0.25. In fact, we'll just set it equal to 25. Okay. And then we're going to have another const that's going to be called dime value. And we're going to set that equal to 10. Another const that's called nickel value. And that's going to be equal to 5. And finally, we'll have another const that's called penny value. And we'll set that equal to 1. All right. Now, why am I doing that? Just so that the program reads, I think, a little bit clearer. All right. You don't have to do this. You don't have to. But to me, it makes sense to do this. All right. Okay. So what do we want to do? All right. Well, we have to get the number of quarters. We have to get the number of dimes. We've got to get the number of nickels. And we've got to get the number of pennies. All right. So in other words, we've got to make our change. So let's create, and we can do this in many ways. All right. We can say function make change like that. And I'm not going to well, we may end up, I think we'll pass in here the number of cents that we put in. In fact, what did we call this? I should go back and look. Pum, pum, pum. Come back in here and look at our HTML. And we call this cents. That's going to be the number of cents that we're putting in there. All right. So that's the number, the value I should use, not num cents, cents. All right. So we can do that. And I can come in and write the function. Or I can come in and say const make change. All right, cents, and I can say equal. Now I want to mention to you that what I did yesterday was I went out and I created with this calculator, I created it 4 or 5 different ways, and it's out there right now. They all give you the exact same answer. They're all really simplistic, but what I want to show you quickly, I don't want to waste my time or yours, but when you look here, all right. So this is with function expressions. So notice what we have here. All right. We've got another one here that we did with arrow functions. We did another one here that we did with local variables where I created everything under main and then passed it. And another one with all global variables. That was the first one I'd done. So when I'm coming in here to create this now, there's a lot of different ways that this can be created, this sense program that we're doing right now. All right. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use arrow functions. I'd like to get you used to using them because we are going to be using them. We are going to be using them a lot in the AWD1111 class, the database-driven website development class. So I'm going to say const make change equal, and I have to pass in cents. I can put this in parens, but since there's only one, since there is only one, whoops, parameter, I don't have to. Okay, so we can put that into parens, but we don't have to. I want to say that again. We can put this thing into parens or leave them out. I kind of like the way it looks a little better with it in there. All right, so we have to figure out our quarters. Okay, so let's have a constant here. All right, and we'll say quarters. And what is that? We already know this. It's going to be equal to our cents that we put in here, like 93, for example, divided by 25, which is quarter value. Now, what happens if we put something non-numeric in there? Well, again, that's possible, I guess. All right. So one thing, let's go back and look at this. Again, I didn't build this interface. This was built for us. All right. And what we're putting in here for this sense, all right, input type equal button, etc. No, where is that? Enter the amount of change. So where is there? ID equals sense. It's type equal text. Probably should have made that a number field with a minimum and a maximum. I didn't write the program, so I'm going to go by what the authors did. I'm going to use what they have there. So I'm going to do a parse int here. If we made this a numeric field, we wouldn't have to do a parse int. But to be safe, I'm going to put a parse int here. Now, what do we want to do? The number of quarters is the cents that we passed in divided by our quarter value. Okay, that's it. So that'll give us the number of quarters. So if we did this right now and then did an alert on it, all right, then what that would do is it would say 3. Because if we put 93 in there and you said 93 divided by 25, remember it's an integer divided by an integer. All right, so it would be 3. But we also need the amount that's left. All right, we need the amount that's left. So cents is now equal to cents modulo 25 or modulo quarter value. All right. So quarters is now equal to 3, and cents will now be equal to 93 minus 75, or 18 cents. All right. So I'll put a comment here that says, figure out number of quarters. All right. And we're going to be doing this same thing a couple more times. So let me copy this. And let me now figure out the number of dimes. All right. So dimes is going to be equal to our cents, which is 18 divided by dime value. Our value. There we go. All right. And now we want to remove that 10 cents from here. So cents, again, is going to be equal to cents modulo dime value. So again, if right now we had put in 93 for the number of cents, we would have so far been able to have figured out, get rid of these. We would have done this, and we would have done this. So we'll have 8 cents left right now. We're going to do the same type of thing again. But now it's not going to be the number of dimes. It's going to be the number of nickels. All right. And that'll be nickel value here, and it'll be nickel value here. All right. Now, we don't even need to do anything special for pennies. All right. We really don't even need a penny value. So I'm going to get rid of that. Why? Why don't we need a penny value? Get rid of, come on. Because what pennies is, it's whatever's left after I say cents. In fact, I just did it. I just said cents modulo 5 right there. So I've already got cents. So const pennies equal cents. Or I can grab this right here, if that's easier to read, and I can say const pennies equal cents modulo nickel value. So I now have in here my number of quarters, my number of dimes, my number of nickels, and my number of pennies, which is exactly what I wanted. All right. Now, what did we give those for names? Well, what you'd think: an ID of quarters, an ID of dimes, an ID of nickels, and an ID of pennies. All right. Why am I telling you that? Because now we can display the results. So I can come in here and say $, quarters, whoops, it's an ID, so quarters dot value equal quarters. And I can hit enter here. Let's copy this down. And we'll have quarters, we'll have dimes, we'll have nickels, and we'll have pennies. Now, just to pretty this up a little bit, maybe it won't, but we'll do this. All right, so there is displaying our results. Okay, now we put this in a thing called make change. All right, and we could have made another routine here that was called display change. Might have been a little cleaner to do that. All right, but this curly brace should actually be down here. All right, and this can be tabbed over. Now, this could be its own routine if we wanted to do that, but all we're doing is we're setting those values right there. So right now, okay, if we have put in a valid value, we're all set. Okay, the problem is, what if we didn't put in a valid value? Okay, what if we did not put in a valid value? All right, well, we have to handle that. So this may change. This will be called if the input was between 0 and 99. All right, and I don't even like the way the author wrote this. The author says, let's make it between 1 and 99. So let's come back in here in our HTML, and we're going to put in here 1. I mean, to put 0 in there is just foolhardy, I think. So we're going to say 1 and 99. All right, so I'm taking a little poetic justice or whatever you want to call that here to do that. All right, so this is called if the input was between 1 and 99. All right, but I also have to handle the case of what if the input wasn't between 1 and 99. All right, we can call this whatever we want. Let's come in here and call this process input. All right, we can call it whatever we want. We don't have to pass anything in, but we do need, when we pass in nothing, we do need to put in the parentheses. All right, so this is going to be our process input. So what is that? Well, the first thing we have to do is get the entry in the text box. All right, that was called sense. So I'm going to say let sense equal parse int. All right, and what we want in here is the value of sense. All right, so I use that $sign and I put in here sense, but I want the value of sense. All right, dot value, like that. So if I put a 93 in, like we said before, we now have 93. Okay, so let's come in here and say if is NaN sense. Well, we know that'd be an error if we left it blank or put in something non-numeric. All right, or let's make a couple more in here. Let's make a couple more constants. And we're going to make one called min sense that we're going to set equal to 1. And another one we'll call max sense, and we'll set that equal to 99. All right. So now we can say if it's non-numeric or sense less than min sense or sense is greater than max sense. Well, if any one of those are true, we've got an invalid input. So what are we doing here? Validate that input is numeric and between 1 and 99. Right? And if it's not, for right now, we're just going to make an alert. And we'll have it say whatever we want it to say. We'll say invalid input. All right. Input must be a number between, and what we'll do in here is we'll add our constants. So in fact, let's do that, and let's use template literals. I like those better anyway. All right, so invalid input. Input must be a number between, and we will put in here, I want this to not scroll off the screen. So we'll just say must be a number between 1, and we already know what 1 is. That's min cents. So we need $min cents and $max cents. All right. And we have to end our template literal. And I'm just going to change this to invalid. So invalid must be a number between 1 and 99. That's all we're going to say. Okay. All right. Then that's if it was invalid, right? Okay. So this will be for invalid input. Well, what if there's valid input? Else, that'll be the handle here. So this again will be valid input. Well, if it's valid input, we want to call our routine right here. That was called make change, and we want to pass the cents into it, just like that. All right, so we want to call make change, and we have to pass in cents. All right. We also want to make sure that after we do this, just in case we had bad input, all right, we want to go back and reset the focus to that cents field. Okay, so I'm going to say set focus to cents text box. So I'm going to say here $, cents. Let's see. Cents. Oh my goodness. Dot focus. All right. Now we're almost done, but right now the system doesn't know. This is not a smart thing. So I can go run it now, but it's not going to work correctly. All right. But what the system needs to know when we do this, we don't have our CSS file hooked up. We'll do that in a moment. All right. But what we need to know is what, basically we need to register this button. So right now, if I put in 99 and I hit calculate, nothing happens because it doesn't know to register, or whatever you want to call it, this button, all right, with what it is we want it to do. What does that mean? That means we have to add a little bit more code down here. And in the book, they said you should use the document.add event listener, and we want to be listening for that DOM content loaded. All right. Just like that. And we're not passing anything in. All right. And what do we want to do? Well, we want to add the event handlers. Now, they're not handlers, they're handler. There's only one, and that is we want the program to respond when we click the button. So what does that mean? Well, what's the name of the button? What is the name of our button? All right. Its ID, when you look right here, is calculate right there. All right. So what we want to tell it to do is when we click the calculate button, so we're adding our event listener here. So we say $, £, calculate. All right. That dot on click. So when we click it, what we want is we want this process input to run, just like that. That's it. And then finally, we want to make sure when the program starts, just like we're doing here, we don't have to do this. It's just a nicety for the person running the program. We want to set the focus to the cents text box. That's it. Now, I don't know if it'll work. I think it will. It makes sense to me. So let's take a quick look. File, save all. Let's go back to here and let's run it. In fact, we made changes here, so let's do another file, save onto here. All right. And open it with live server. Oh, let me go back and first map this thing up. Okay. Because we didn't do that. So we've got this make change. So this is under CSS/make change. All right. And our JavaScript file is under JS/make change. Okay. Because I just moved them into where I thought they should be. So we'll know right away if our CSS work because it'll now be formatted. And it is. All right. It's a little big and that's why it's running over here. Make it a little smaller. Come on. There's 100%. Let's change that where it says enter amount of change. Let's just say enter change. Do like that. It'll look a little nicer. So let's save all of it and run it again. There, now we can make it a little bigger. There we are. All right, if we put nothing in there and we click calculate, well, we should have been getting our alert. We didn't, so let's figure out why. All right, cannot read properties of null. Reading value there. All right. And what that means, for lack of better words, is we're trying to work on something that hasn't yet been set. All right, so let's take a look. Let's go back to our code and take a look. The answer is always in the code. And in this case, and we don't need that semicolon, the answer is in our code here. So const $selector. All right, document.query selector. That was given. This again is that shortcut. Min sense is 1, max sense is 99, so those are minimum and maximum. The value of a quarter is 25, the value of a dime is 10, the value of a nickel is 5. All right, that looks good to me. Again, we could put a penny value in there, but we really don't need it. All right, so first thing we want to do is our make change. So const make change equal. And again, like I said, just so you know, we don't really need these. If you find that easier or that reads better, then do it like that. If you find it reads better with the parentheses in there, that's only the case when there is only one parameter or one thing we're passing in. All right, so we're calling make change. All right, and that's what we're passing in. All right, so let's take a look at what's in there. So we figure out our quarters, and that is our cents divided by 25. And then our cents becomes our cents modulo 25. All right. Then we figure out our dimes, which is again another parsed int, cents divided by dime value. And then cents equals cents modulo. All right. In fact, can we do this? Can we say, okay, all I'm trying to do is see if we can clean this program up a little bit. Oops. That's going to have to go here. Now the equal sign. There we go. All right. Then we figure out our number of nickels. And finally, we should be able to say const pennies. Well, we're not using cents anymore, so we got to do it like this. All right, equals cents modulo nickel value. That looks good to me. Now I'm still looking here for an error. All right, so our quarters dot value is quarters. Our dimes dot value is dimes. Our nickels dot value is nickels. Our pennies dot value, well, that wouldn't be quarters. There's one error. So that would be, that would be pennies. All right, so there's one error we found, but that's not going to fix the problem, I don't think, that we've had. All right, so now we come in here, we've got our thing called process input. And again, right there, those parens are mandatory or we're going to get an error message. So it's only when you have one single parameter, you can use the parentheses or let them go either way. So we're saying let sense equal parse int $sense dot value. That looks good to me. Then we're validating it. So if it's not a number, or if it's less than 1, or if it's greater than 99, so if it's any one of those, we're doing an alert that says invalid must be a number between, and we've got min sense there and max sense. All right, which again should be 199. Otherwise, we want to call make change. That is what we called it up here, make change. And it's expecting a parameter. So we're passing it in sense. All right, we are setting the focus right here. So that whether it worked or whether it didn't work, we're back in that text box again. Okay, that's called sense.focus. All right, finally, we've got our event listener in here. Document.add event listener, DOM content loaded. Okay, we're not passing anything in, and we want to add our handler. All right, so $, then in parens, calculate dot on click equal process input. Okay, and finally, we've got set focus to the sense text box. Now, I'm looking at it, and to me, it makes total sense. Trying to figure out why it would be giving me an error. All right. The author's was very similar to mine, but where I used constants up here, the author in here just used 25 and 10, etc. Okay, and didn't have a min sense and a max sense. I don't see why that would change anything. So const min sense, const max sense. Let's do this. Let's see if the problem is in what I've got right here. All right. And there's a whole big issue with hoisting, etc., that sometimes it doesn't like it. You have to put it at the bottom or the top or whatever. So let's change this. Everywhere we've got this, we're going to make it 25. Everywhere we've got this, we're going to make it 10. Everywhere we have this, we're going to make it 5. All right. And I want to see, and I'm going to change this to 1, change this to 99, change this to 1, and change that to 99. And technically now, since it's just the numbers, I don't even need, technically, I wouldn't have even needed to use the template literal in here. All right, that should be everything. So let's see if that fixed it, made it worse, didn't change anything. So I'm going to do a save all, come back in here, run it. Okay, and again, let's try 93 like we did before. And of course, we're getting an error. Inspect, my guess is it'll be the same error we had before. Yeah, cannot read properties of null, reading value at process input. So it's in line 34 that it's breaking up, or that it's breaking, whatever you want to call it. And it's in line 34 right here. So it's this line. All right. And I'm looking at it, just giving it a quick look. Let sense equal parse int. Oh, it needs to know that this was an ID. That needs to be a £sign there. That was my error. Let's see now. If we go back and if we run it again, and I'm going to again put in 93. And there's my answers. 3113, which is when we figured it out longhand, we had 3113. If we run it again, and notice that there is where our cursor is, if we put nothing in there, we get this that says invalid, must be a number between 1 and 99. If we put something in here, we get the same thing. Invalid must be a number between 1 and 99. All right. And if we put in something that's too small, same message. If we put in something that is too large, same message. All right. Let's go back and make a couple changes. I want this to look the way that it looked to begin with when I made my changes to it. What do I mean? Well, watch me, please. I'm going to go back and uncomment all of these, because I don't think there was anything wrong with them to begin with. All right, and we're going to change everywhere we've got 25. We're going to change that to quarter value. Change it back. Anywhere we've got the 10 here, we're going to change that to dime value. Anywhere we've got the 5 here, we're going to make that nickel value. Oops. Come on. So we're going to make that nickel value. All right. Then in here, we're going to come back and we're going to do this like we had it before. In other words, this is going to be min cents, and this is going to be max cents. All right, those are everything that I've changed. So I want to see if putting that back as I did will fix this. So file save all. Well, I shouldn't say fix it. I don't want to make sure it's not broken. All right, so let's look. Again, we'll put in 93 here. And it works. Okay, we don't have a clear button. We could add one in here. Would be kind of a nice thing to do. All right, so we could put one in. Now, what's going to happen is I don't have that much room in here when you look. Okay, so I've got this interchange do 1 to 99. And I'm going to put in here, I'm going to change this around just a little bit so you can see it. We'll see if we can make this work. All right, this is not in the book. I have no notes. I might end up breaking the program, but that's okay. It really is. So I'm going to come back in here. And first I'm going to come back into here and I want to change the message. And it'll just say change. All right, and then 1 to 99. We'll leave it like that. So that'll be the first thing. Then underneath this button that we have, I'm going to make another button. All right, so we now have two buttons. Right now they're identical to one another, but this value here, for the value, I'm going to put clear. And the name of the button will be clear. And the ID of the button will be clear. Now, before I put in some code for it, which I'll do momentarily, let's see if it put that in. So let's see if it now looks the way I want it to look. All right, so it did put it on a new line. All right, I'm going to have to jack with a CSS in order to put that on the same line. All right, so now we've got to calculate, and we do have a clear button. So let's take a look at the CSS. All I'm trying to do is, we got the program working. Now I'm just making some changes to it. So let's look over here. Let's look at the CSS. All right, and what do we have here? Calculate margin bottom, etc. Input, margin left. We've got this in any input. So those are going to be all of our inputs. Label, I'm looking for, there we go, we got a width. Let's change the width to 750. See if that fixes it, so to speak. So let's do a file, save all. Let's go back and bring up our program again. There, and you can see now it's got more room. So that looks a little bit better. Now, that's all fine. That's good, but we need to do two more things. We need to register that button, and we need to write a routine so that when we click it, something happens. What do we want to have happen? We want that to clear. 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 And we want our focus to go right there. All right. We'll see if we can do that right now. Now, notice the change calculator. This is not, I think before it was probably centered. I don't really care. But if I want to change that as well, I can come back into here, and where I've got the H1, all right, I can try putting in here I text align center. Okay, so we can put that in. Let's see if that fixed it. There, now it's centered. Okay. It's not really a big thing one way or the other, but it looks nicer, I think, that way. So let's go in and put in this code. Again, if it doesn't work, I'll get rid of it. I'm doing this off the top of my head. So there's two things we want to do here. Okay, I already mentioned them to you. First thing we want to do is, okay, so we've got this event listener. So this says when we press that calculate button, we want that to run. Now the other one will be $, and we have to put in here the name of that button, add an ID of clear, all right, dot on click, equal, and I'll just call it clear fields. Now, right now, that isn't written. So if I try to run that, of course, it's not going to work. All right. And nothing is going to be passed into it. So we had our process entry right here. That was this one right here is what's called there. Process input, process input. All right. So down below that, we're going to add this. But again, we're going to call it, instead of that, clear fields. All right. And we'll need our curly here. All right. So what do we want to do? Well, we'll want to take everything that we have there. That's all this stuff. And we're going to want to set its value to nothing. All right. So we'll see if I did this right in a second. So this will be nothing. Get rid of that. We want this to be nothing. We want this to be nothing. We want this to be nothing. That'll take care of 4 of them. We want to set the focus. All right. But we also want to clear the value out for the field, which was called, what is that called again? Sense. Okay. So I'm going to see if we can set sense equal. So I'm going to copy this. And this will be sense. Oh, not there. I'm sorry. It'll be down here. And we're going to say sense dot value. And again, we're going to want to set that equal to nothing. All right. So let's see if that works or if I broke it. So file, save all, and let's run this. All right, again, I'm going to come back in here. First of all, let's try we get our error message. That's good. So that didn't break. 93. That all worked. Now let's clear. So that should clear, 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 and our cursor should be back here. Let's move our cursor to right there so you can see it. I'm going to click clear. All right, everything cleared and our cursor is back. I like it. All right, so I now have a clear button in there. The only other thing I'd like to do is where we put that in and where we cleared this right here. And that is, and this is not in your book, but if we put a bad value in there, we did that alert and it says it must be between there. Why don't we clear it out? All right, why don't we clear it out and make sure that the focus is set there? All right, so in other words, right there, we'll set its value to nothing. That's going to clear it out. And even though the focus should be there already, we're just going to manually make sure that it's there. Okay, in fact, we shouldn't have to even do this. But let's see. Let's see what happens now. So again, I'm going to do a file, save all. And what should happen now is if I put in something that's illegal, like hello, I get my message, and when I click OK, this should go away, and my cursor should be there. And it is. All right. So one last time here, taking this from the top. Let's first look at what I changed. All right. In the HTML, I came in and added a second button that would clear everything. That's the first thing I did. All right. And besides that, I moved where the CSS file was into its own folder. I moved where the JavaScript was into its own folder. All right, so that's first thing. Then in the CSS, I came in and did I change anything in here? Yes, I changed the width to 750 pixels. And I did that so I'd have enough room width-wise for both my calculate button and my clear button to be on the same line, so to speak. All right. Then after doing those two, I wrote the JavaScript. All right. This again is I'm just going to put a comment here that says create alias for document dot query selector, because that's what it is. All right. Just like that. All right. And then here, create other program constants. You didn't have to do this. All right. You could even argue that I made it worse instead of better. But the minimum number of cents is 1. The maximum is 99. What's kind of neat about this is if I change this from 99 to 999 as an example. All right. So let's do that. And let me go in here and do a file, save all, and let me rerun this. All right. That's why I use the constant there. Come on. There we go. And let's run this. Now I can make it from 1 to 999, even though it still says 99. But I'm going to put in here now 993. And I click calculate. And it says, I still have that test in there. That's why it's not working. But if I did want to change it later, all right, if I did want to change it later, yeah, I'm still here. I could do that. All right, let's go back. We'll just keep it at 99. So 99, we're expecting you to enter a value, a number between 1 and 99. The value of a quarter is 25. The value of a dime is 10. The value of a nickel is 5. Now, if we wanted to use 0.25, 0.1, etc., we could do that, but then there'd be a lot of dividing by 100. Kind of reads better this way, I think. And instead of the parse int, we'd be using a parse float. All right, then we come in with an arrow function, and that's our make change. We're passing in this sense right here. This value is the same value we put into that text box. Remember that other than the first text box, every other field in there is disabled. All right. So quarters is going to be whatever value we put in there divided by 25. So again, using the example I gave you, if we put in 93, 93 divided by 25 is 3 point something, but since it's an int divided by an int, and we're doing a parse int on it, all right, we get 3. So 3 is now our quarter value. Now our cents is going to be equal to 93 modulo 75. So cents will now be 18 when we get to right here. Then we do the same thing with dimes. All right, and that'll be 18 divided by 10. But instead of being 1.8, since it's a parse int, and since we're dividing an int by an int, it is now 1. So dime value, or dimes, becomes 1. So we've got 3 for quarters, 1 for dimes. Now we have to take that 18 and modulo it by 10, which gives us 8. Then we do the similar process with nickels. So 8 divided by 5, all right, is going to be 1 point whatever. All right, 1.3 or 1, doesn't matter. All right. Because all we care about is nickels is now 1. We've got 3 cents left, and that becomes the value of our pennies. Then this is displaying the results in the associated text boxes. All right. These are the names that were given: quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies, that were given in here. Quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies. They're all disabled, but we're manually putting those values in there. All right. We are letting the system know that when the program starts, when you click the calculate button, what should run is the process input method or function. There it is. All right, it grabs the value that we put into the text box, then it validates it to make sure that A, it's numeric, B, it is greater than or equal to 1, and C, it is less than or equal to 99. If those tests fail, if any of those 3 tests fail, the input is invalid, so we give an alert. We clear out whatever value might have been in there. But if we get down to the else, we did have a valid input. So it was numeric, and it was between 1 and 99. So we call make change, which we just went through. Regardless, we set the focus back to that text box. All right. Finally, we added a button that we called clear, with an ID of clear. And when we click that, we're registering it here so that it calls clear fields. And all that does is it takes the value that was inside of each one of the text boxes, the one we're inputting it in, and the 4 that are disabled, and it sets it equal to the empty string. So it empties it out. Then it sets the focus to the cents text box. So we can start all over again and do another one. And that's it for that first one. That was pretty long, but hopefully that helps. So I'm going to do a save all. I'm not saving this for you guys. I'm not doing that. All right. Because this is what you're supposed to be doing. I'm just trying to help get you started. So let's see what else is in here. It's not there. Yeah, it's there. So this was chapter 4. So we just did this change maker. All right. So next, let's look at the income tax. All right. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is the same thing I did before, and that is I'm going to come in here, make a folder called CSS, and move my CSS file into that folder. Next, I'm going to make another folder called JS, and I'm going to move my JavaScript into that folder. All right. Then, now I can close this. All right. So that's now closed. And now I can come in here and I can open this one. So I'm going to open this with code. All right. So see, there's my CSS, there's my JS, and there's my index file. So again, I'm going to have to change this. So it's CSS slash, and I'm going to have to change this so that it's JS slash. All right, let's make sure it's not broken and we have our beginning of what we want to look at here. There it is. All right. So what does this one say? Let's go back to here and let's look at, let's see, we just did the change calculator, and this is the income tax calculator. So let's look at that. All right. Pretty ugly, but look at that table. All right. It's because we're going to write this one right now. Okay. And as you might guess, is it going to be longer? I guess a little bit. I don't know. All right. But we want to be able to calculate our tax. All right. So we're going to have a big if statement in here because we got if this, do this, else 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 if this, do this. All right. So we've got a bunch of stuff in here started for us. All right. And one thing I want to go back and make sure I did this. Why? Because if I didn't, stupid me. But let me check something here. All right. So we just did this change calculator. All right. And now I'm going to let you do this one. I think you can do the sales tax calculator. That's probably the easiest out of the three. So I'll let you do that one. All righty. And again, we will take a look in just a second. Right. So I've already done for you the change calculator, and now we're doing the income tax calculator. All right. So we'll do that one just a minute. But what I want to make sure of first is I'm going to bring up the one we just did, which was this change maker. Let me bring it up again, the JS. And I didn't. At the top, I should be putting in that use strict statement. Again, that is going to force us to be better programmers. All right. And since I'm doing that, I want to make sure I didn't break it. So let's go back to here, and I'm just going to double click the file. And again, we'll come in here, whoops, like we did, and we'll put in 93. We still get everything. We can clear. All right. I can put in 56, 50, 55, 56. All right. Let's put in 66 here. And there we go. And the clear works. And if we put in nothing, we're still getting that message. Good. So everything works, but I now have the use strict in there. And I'm going to make sure if it's not in there, I put in the use strict for the next one that we're going to do now. All right. So we're here. If we look in here, you'll notice when we run this program, all right, do I have the run still up here? No, I don't. So let's run it again. So when you run this program here, again, we have one input, we have one output, and I'm going to do just like I did before. I'm going to add a clear button here. Why? Because I don't like the way that looks. I want to be able to clear it. So let me go in and make those changes like I did before. So in this calculate CSS, I'm going to change the width like I did before. Let's just see if we can make it 600, if that's big enough. All right. And in our H1, again, we will say text align center. All right, so file, save all. In fact, just to be sure, I'm going to make it 650. That should be plenty. So file, save all. And let's go back into our index file here and run it again. Oh yeah, that's giving us plenty of room for a clear button. We'll put that in next. And our thing here is centered. I like the way that looks a lot more. Okay, so let's go in and start writing some JavaScript. This should be done. So our CSS should be done. Our HTML, we'll leave it open so we can run the program, but let's put in our JavaScript. We've already got our use statement here, our use strict. All right, again, so here's our alias for document.query selector. All right. Now, I could come in and take all those numbers that we saw in here. Where is it? We could go back to all these numbers and I could make, so I could call that, this could be called min level one. This could be called like level one, min level two, min level three, min level four. That might be a little harder. The good news about doing it that way, if we did it that way, is over time, those numbers are going to change. All right, so we wouldn't have to manually go in and change them. The bad news is the program might actually read worse doing it that way because it might be harder for people to understand what's going on. So I'm just going to use the actual numbers themselves. And what I'm getting to is I'm not going to really have any, I'm not really going to have any extra constants in here is what I'm telling you. All right. Because again, I'd like you to get used to using arrow functions. All right. We'll do a const and we've got this is called process entry. All right. So that's where we're going to validate everything. So we'll say here const process entry equal. All right. So that's the one that's going to be called here. All right. But eventually what we're going to want to do though too is we're going to want to calculate the tax. So I'm going to say const calculate tax equals, and we're going to pass in an income tax. All right, or not their income tax, an income. How much did they make? Just like that. All right. So we're going to let tax equal 0.0. All right. And now we're going to put in, calculate tax based on income provided. All right. So this is going to be a long and a fairly ugly if statement. So if the income is less than or equal to, and it was 9875. So if that's the case, the tax is equal to their income times 10%. Again, these are just the figures that we were given. These are the figures that we were given in our specs. So we're going to have this, and then we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 else if statements. Now, since this is just one line, we technically don't need the curly braces, but I still like them in there the way that it is. All right. Or if I really wanted to kind of condense this down a little so you could read it better, I could do this. All right. I just don't like the way that looks, so I'm going to put it here and here. So it looks a little nicer, but it'll be hard because you won't be able to read all 6 of these at once, just unless I make this the screen size so small. I don't want to do that. So else if income is greater than 9875 and the income is less than or equal to 40,125. And again, I'm getting these numbers from right here. So that was 9875, etc. So these are the numbers that I'm getting, the ones that are in here. All right. So if that's the case, then the tax is equal to 10%, which is $987.50. So 10% of the low plus whatever income they made minus that 9875. And that extra income, all right, that extra income, okay, is going to be taxed at 12%. Okay. Again, these aren't numbers I'm making up. All right. So that's going to handle the second tax bracket. Else if income greater than 40,125, but the income is less than or equal to 85,525. All right. If that's the case, then the tax is equal to 4617.50 plus, and we're using the parens here. We use the paren here, and we're using one here because we want to make sure that's the value that gets multiplied by the percentage. All right. This is wrong. 9875. That should be a plus. Okay. All right. So plus the income minus the 40,125, and that will be taxed at 22%. All right. So you got a flat tax plus whatever they made over a certain amount times a certain percentage. Okay, let's make sure 4617.50. That's here. 4617.50. All right. So this, again, we're just grabbing the stuff that's in here. All right. So we've got part of it done, about half. Else if the income is greater than 85,525 and the income is less than or equal to $163,300. If that's the case, the tax is equal to $14,605.50 plus income minus the 85,525, and that will be taxed at 24%. So you can see we're getting a progressively higher number here, and we're multiplying by a progressively bigger tax rate there. So we now have got 1, 2, 3, 4 of our taxes in here, and we have a total of 7. So else if income is greater than 163,300 and the income is less than or equal to $207,350. And if that's the case, the tax is equal to 33,271.50 plus income minus 163,300 times 0.32. All right, we're getting there. else if the income is greater than $207,350 and the income is less than or equal to $518,400, then the tax is equal to $47,367.50 plus the income minus $207,350 times 0.35 and one last one. Now we could say an else in here, but I'm going to put an else if, meaning if for some reason we get in there with bad data, nothing should happen. That's what I want to have happen. All right. So otherwise, if the income, in fact, I only need one set of parens here. If the income is greater than $518,400, then the tax is equal to $156,235 plus the income minus $518,400, and that'll be multiplied by 37.37%. All right. Now I'd have to go back and double check and make sure that I've got every number in here correct. They could be wrong, but I don't think they are. All right. And then finally, I want to return here tax dot to fixed to 2 decimal places. Okay. Believe it or not, we don't have too much to go. Now, the process entry, just like we did before, we're going to have in here let income equal, it'll be a parse float now. Okay. And it'll be $, the income dot value. And where did I get an ID of income? That's in here. And notice our ID is income. I'm going to immediately, just so I don't forget, I'm going to add another button here. And this will be my clear button in just a minute. And I'm not even going to test it. I'm just going to go and write all the code and do everything else for it first. All right. So let income, but I have to check just like we did before and say if is NaN income. So if we put in something that was non-numeric, or we try putting in a negative value, or let's just say here, or income less than or equal to 0. I think that'll work. All right. If either one of those are the case, I'll just put in an alert that says income must be numeric and greater than 0. Okay, that should be fine. All right. And then what we'll do is we will set the focus. And we may as well remove the value that was in there because it was garbage. I don't think it matters if we do that first or second. All right. So we're almost done, but we've got a button in there, and that button is called clear, and we haven't done anything with it. So first let's register it. That's my word. I don't know if there's an official word like that. When we click it, we'll again call clear fields. Whoops. And we'll write that one up here. So again, I'm going to steal that line. And I'm going to put it right here. And we'll need a curly. All right. And instead of process entry, it'll be clear fields. Okay. And I'm going to grab that line right there too, because that's pretty much what we want to do. And what is it that we want to do? Well, we want to take whatever's in that income line and clear it. We want to take whatever is in, and what's that one called? The other one for the tax owed, that's called tax. So we want to take that one and clear it. All right. And then we want to set the focus. So that'll be income. This one will be tax. That's called putting your fingers on the right keys. All right. And let's see if it works. So file, save all, and let's run it. First, let's put in something, put in nothing. And we get income must be numeric and greater than 0. How about if we put in a negative number here? It should give us the message and it should clear it and keep the focus there. And it does. All right. Let's put in there $10,000 and calculate. Well, that isn't good. We didn't get anything there and it cleared. So that wasn't good. So we'll fix that right now. All right. So I don't think that we're ever telling it to display. So we've got our error in here. All right, if it's less, it must be this and this. And we want to clear that. That's correct. But we don't have an else in here. So else, meaning that we did put in a valid number. So income is equal to parse float of income. And then our tax value, oops, that should be tax. Dot value should be equal to that call to calculate tax, and we pass in the income. That we weren't doing. Well, that's a big thing because, you know, we're not telling it to do that. So file, save all, let's run it again, make sure we didn't break anything. So if we come in here and leave it blank, okay. And if we put in a negative value, okay, and if we put in 0, that's all working. Now let's try 10,000. We're not getting anything. We're going to fix it. As I spelled calculate instead of calculate. So when we look at this, we're going to run this and we're going to put in here $10,000. All right. And that, well, in fact, let's do this. We'll make it 9,000. So it will be less than or equal to this. Okay. So we'll make it 9,000. So our income, it should be 9,000 times 10%. So the tax should be 900 if we run that. So if we run this and put in here 9,000, our tax is 900. That worked. That's a good start. All right, we're clearing it. Let's look at another one in here. We already ran our cases where we had bad input. So let's go back to here. And now let's do this. All right. Well, let's put in here $20,000. 20,000. All right. So, and this is the kind of work as a programmer you do. So I'm going to put in 20,000. All right. And that 20,000 is going to be in this range here. So I want to subtract. So minus 9875. And that gives me 10,125. That's this. I'm going to multiply that by 0.12. So that's that tax. And then I want to add the 987.50 to that. So plus 987.50. So if I did that right, I should get $2,202.50. Let's run it again with 40,000. All right, well, 460250. And what did I say we should get here? Something is hosed. Either I've got a wrong equation in there or I did mine incorrectly. Okay, now when we do this, it was less than or equal to 40,125. So we want our income. So let me clear this and try it again. All right. So let's clear this. We want our income, which was 40,000. All right. Oh, I think I used 20,000. I don't know, but we're going to use 40,000. So 40,000 is our income. And we are going to subtract from that 9875. All right. And we now get 30,000. That's the problem. I used 20,000 before. All right. So we get 30,125. I'm going to multiply that by 12%, 3615, and I'm going to add to that 987.50. And I get 4602.50, which is exactly what I got here. All right. Before we do the next one, before I press clear, let's try another example here. So for the next one, I'm going to say you made 80,000. All right. And what that is I have to subtract from there 40,125. And I have to multiply that by 22%. And then add to that 4617.50. So if I did that right, for 80,000, my tax should be 13,390. So let's change this to 80. All right. And again, 13,390. So that one worked. All right. So I've now checked 3 of my boxes. All right. So let's do another one. Let's clear. And the next one will make 150,000 right there. So if you made 150,000, all right, then I have to subtract from there 85,525, take the result and multiply the result by 24%, and then add to that $14,605.50 if I did this right. So for $150,000, that should be my tax. So let's move this here. I'm going to clear and I'm going to put in 150,000 right there and calculate. Oops, I did it wrong. I put in 15,000. 150,000. All right. and 30079.5. That one worked. All right, we've got 3 more to check here. 2 more to check here. All right, so the next one, we're going to go all the way up to 500,000. So that's what we're going to put in here in just a second. 500. So let's first do it manually. All right, did I remove my calculator? I must have. So 500,000. All right, and I want to subtract from there 207,350. I want to take that result and multiply it by 35%. All right, and then I want to add to that $47,367.50. So if I made $500,000, that should be my tax. Well, let's see. All right. 149,795. There it is. Finally, let's do one last one, and let's use $1 million. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want to subtract from that $518,400. I want to take that result and multiply it by 0.37. All right, and I want to add to that $156,235. So if I make $1 million, the tax on there should be $334,427. All right, 334,427. So now I have now come in here and whoops, I have tested everything that's in here. That works. The clear works. Putting nothing in there works, etc. So I have now come in and out of your homework. All right. So out of that homework that's in here, and you don't have to add a clear button. I just thought it made it easier to run the program. All right. But now from your homework, I have now come in and I have said for chapter 4, you have to do the develop sales calculator yourselves, not hard. Notice there is a clear button in there, so I've shown you now how you can implement that. All right. You have to still do the change calculator. You can add a clear button or leave it off. It's up to you. You still also have to do the develop the income tax calculator. You can add a clear button or you can leave it off. All right, we're not doing anything from 6 or 7 yet. So we have now done 2 out of the 3 problems for chapter 4, and there's nothing here for chapter 5. So again, you must do all 3. This one you're doing on your own. All right, then let's look at the short exercises. What do we have here? Well, for chapter 4, we have enhance the MPG program. Enhance the MPG program. All right, so we can look at that one in just a second. All right, and what's the other one? So we've got enhance the MPG, and we've got, I think the other one was for scores, right? Use arrow functions with the test scores application. All right. Well, the MPG, what you have to do, in fact, let's take a look at what it looks like now. All right, so let me do a file save all in here. Save, clear that, file save, clear that, and then let's exit this. All right. So with the MPG, it currently looks like this, and I think it works. Gives you an answer, but they want you to be able to double click and I think have all this stuff be cleared and then put the cursor right there. I believe that's what they want. All right. Which, in my humble opinion, at least, doesn't sound very difficult. All right. You want to write some kind of a clear routine. Okay. So let's look at it first. So that's it running. Let me close all these. All right, open this, run it to make sure it works like the one in the book. Then in the JavaScript file, note that there is a clears entry function that isn't being used. Enhance the application so the entries are cleared when the user double clicks in this text box right here. All right, it says it will not work though if the text box is disabled, so we will have to enable it. Enhance the application so that the miles driven is cleared when it receives the focus. Then do the same for the gallons of gas. So if you click it in this field or this field, it should clear. Enhance the application so the calculation is done when the focus leaves the gallon of gas text box. All right, to do the calculation, you just need to run the process entry function when that event occurs. So we will do this one in just a second. I'm going to ask that you do this one yourselves. All right. And all you're doing in this test scores app is you are changing it from the way it currently is. So again, if I put in here 34, okay, 67, you notice it's working. It's all working. Everything's cool. All right. But when you look in here at the page source and we go, let's see, into our test scores JS, it's working, but they want you to go back and change that from this to using arrow functions. If you go, I don't know how to do that, it's shown right below here. So there's an arrow function there. So you have to change this one and change this one into arrow functions. I think you can do that on your own. At least my hope is that you can do that on your own. Okay, so let's go back and we will take a look quickly at not the test score one, but at the MPG one. Again, as I've been doing, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make a new folder called JS, and I'm going to move my MPG into there. Then I'm going to create another new folder called CSS, and I'm going to add and put my CSS file into there. All right. Now I'm going to open this folder up in code. All right. In the CSS, because again, let's see once. In fact, let's run it. All right. We don't have, well, I'm not going to worry about a clear button because of what we're asked to do in this one. So this will have to change to CSS slash, that should fix that, and JS slash. All right, let's make sure we didn't break anything and that our CSS is now operational. Ooh, doesn't like it, so we'll have to fix that. Did the other stuff work? That's working. So what doesn't it like about our CSS? Have to fix that. Oh, did I remove it? It's not in there. All right, what the heck happened to that? MPG, CSS, and indeed it's empty. All right, let me go back because I've got the master one in here someplace. It's the other one. So let me copy that, put that back in here. All right. Come back into here. And now it looks okay. All right. So let's go and make these changes, and then we'll be finished with a period here. All right. And I'm, if you've been watching, I have not taken a break. I'm not taking one. I'm just getting as much done as I can so I can finish and prepare for my afternoon class. All right. So let me open this up. It's already open in code. And we will open up. Oh, okay. This mpg.css. I'm surprised that worked. That should be moved into the CSS folder. I'll replace it. Cancel. All right, so it looks like I've got that there already. So originally I put it in the JS folder. That was the problem. All right, so now in here I've got my mpg.js. Okay, everything's cool. All right. Let's close this and let's get going here. All right. So we've got our use strict, we've got our alias. All right. And this label right here, this is going to hold either the word miles driven or the word gallons of gas used. All right. So just so you know, that's what that's doing in there. All right. So that's the alias. Holds miles. I think it was miles driven, right? Miles driven or gallons of gas used when they are in error. Okay. All right. We've got this focus and select. I don't think we have to change that. All right. So we've already got a bunch of this done. So what I'm telling you, our process entries, let's take a look at that and see if we got to put anything in there. All right. So process entries, we're reading in our miles, we're reading in our gallons. All right. If our miles was not numeric or it's negative, we are going to say miles driven must be a valid number greater than 0. Let's change that to a greater than sign. Greater than 0, like that. There. Now you can read all of it. I like that. All right. I'm going to put this else on a new line here. This is just me. This is all personal preference. I think it's easier to read like that. All right. So our clear entries is going to clear what you think. All right. Now there's a few other things we want to be able to do. Okay. We want to be able to clear our entries. We want to be able to clear our miles. Well, we've got them here already. This clear entries. All right. So when we call clear entries, we want to be able to clear our miles driven field, our gallons used field, and our MPG field. All right. But we also want individual things in there. So I'm going to change this. I'm going to put above this clear only miles driven field. And this will say var clear miles driven. All right. And we'll make it an arrow function. All right. And it's just going to be this line right here. All right. Then we can have a clear only gallons used field, var clear gallons used. Again, we'll make it an arrow function. And now we can grab this line. Now, for the clear entries, the only thing it's now going to clear, is going to be the miles per gallon. But we can come in here and call the other two things. So I can call here clear miles driven, and I can call clear gallons used. Now it's basically doing everything it was doing before. All right, but instead of doing it all in one routine, it's calling different routines. The reason for my doing that is because now in our event listener, all right, we're told to handle this differently than it is currently being handled. All right. So we're going to have a bunch of lines in here, and then we'll be finished. Now, if we want to, we come back to here. We have just a clear or calculate MPG. We could put a clear right here. All right. If we wanted to just have that, I'm not putting that in because we've got weird requirements here that say when something should be done in a certain way, etc. All right. So I'm not going to put that in. We could, but I'm not going to do it. All right. So in here now, in the MPG in here, all right, well, what do we have? Well, one thing we want is when the program begins, we want the focus to be on our miles field. So that I'm going to leave, but I'm going to put that in there last. All right. So this will register the calculate button. Again, I don't know if that's an official term or if that's something I made up. I don't know. But for the MPG, all right, we want to register that. So when you double click on it, it clears, all right, everything. So dot add event listener. Let's make sure that's what they ask for. This, like I said, these are weird things that they're asking for in here. No, that's the other one. All right. The entries are both cleared when you go in the miles per gallon text box. Says that won't work. That's in here. So I'll have to enable that first. So let's enable it. Means that back in here where we've got this, and it probably says now disabled, or does it? It does not. Okay. So that's okay then. All right. So we'll say clear all entries when MPG, which is the name, I believe, of that button, right? Nope. That field, when MPG field. When MPG text box is double clicked. Okay. So MPG dot add event listener, and it's for a double click event. And when you call that double click event, you want it to call clear entries. Like I said, these are weird, in my opinion, kind of weird requirements. All right. Clear miles driven text box. when it receives the focus. And so miles, we want to add another event listener. This will be when it gets the focus. And when it does, we will want to call clear miles driven. Okay. Then we want to do pretty much the same thing, but with the gallons used. So we want to clear the gallons used text box when it receives the focus. So this is gallons, and this is clear gallons used. All right. Sync anything? Not that. All right, there was one more thing. I don't remember what it said, so I'm going to go look one more time here. So this will handle, run it, enhance the application so the calculation is done when the focus leaves the gallon of gas text box. All right. So when it leaves, when you click on a box like this, it gets the focus. When you leave a box, it gets what's called a blur event. So if I'm right here and I come in and I click right here, two things happen. That gets a blur event and that gets a focus event. All right. So we have to put that in as well. So perform MPG calculation. No, that was spelled right. Calculation when leave when leave, that's kind of bad English. Gallons used text box. All right, so this will be another gallons. And it'll be another dot add event listener. It'll be for the blur event. And when that happens, we want to call our process entries. I think that's everything. Let's try it. File, save all. Now, if I put a number in here and then I click off and I come back and click again, it should clear, and it is. So let's say 400, and I'll put in here 25. Now, as soon as I click off of this, it should go and run it and give me 16 here. Nope. Well, that's working. So 16. Well, I thought it was 16. It should have been 25. I think that would be 16 then. That's working. All right, so what is working and what is not working right now? Okay, run the application so it looks like the one in the book, yeah. Enhance it so the entries are cleared when the user double clicks the miles per gallon text box. When I double click this box right here, well, these all clear. Good, so that works. So that's done. Enhance it so the miles driven is cleared when it receives the focus and the gallons of gas. Those both work. So this one didn't look like it was working. Enhance the application so that the calculation is done. All right. When the user leaves the gallons used text box. So in other words, when I run this, and I think this did not work, so I'm going to look at it again. So when I come in here, and if there was something in here, and I come back, it's removed. That's good. All right, so again, we'll put in 300. I'll put in some junk here, and I'll click over here. And if I come back, that's cleared. That's good. And I'll just put in here 15. So when I leave this and I click here, it should be running it. But I have to do this to make it run. When I double click on here, that's working. But this last thing does not appear to be working, which says calculation should be done when the focus leaves the gallons of gas used text box. To do that, you just need to run the process entries function when that event occurs. Well, I already put that in, didn't I? Ah, should say blur, not blue. All right, so let's try one more time. All right, 300. If I come back to it, it should clear. Gallons of gas must be a valid number of greater than 0. Okay. Oh, that isn't good. Well, that's like in a loop, so we'll have to fix that. So let's look at that. Might be the order in which I have these, but I don't think it is. Calculate MPG, miles, gallons, gallons, miles. I think that's correct. Why is it giving me that goofy result? Now, when I leave and click here, it should do the calculation and put a 12 there, and it did. When I double click on this, they should all go away. And really, the other thing I should do is when I double click is I should put the focus back on miles driven. So let's do that. So when I'm double clicking, it's calling clear entries. So at the end of clear entries, mpg.value has got nothing. Okay. Then I should be saying $, mpg, miles per gallon, not the miles per gallon, I'm sorry. It should be the miles dot focus. And that should be everything. I'm leaving the semicolons in because the author, this is the author's code that I'm just enhancing. So let's try that one more time. 555, 22, and ran it. Now, when I double click on this, these should clear and my cursor should go back there. And there's blinking. So that's everything. So what I attempted to do in these 2 hours of lecture was I went through 3 of the problems that you're assigned. You must do this enhance the MPG for chapter 4. You must do on your own the use arrow functions for 4.2. And you must do on your own the debug. So this should be working when you turn that in. All right. So those are the 3 programs you have from there. All right. And then for the extra exercises, you have to do the the sales calculator yourselves. I just went through and did the develop the change calculator, and I did the develop the income tax calculator. All right. So out of the 5 problems you have to do, 3 of them have already been done. I am not going to put that out there as a GitHub repo. You have to do these. So Tomorrow, I'm going to email you a copy of the pretest. Tomorrow will be lab for the entire period. On Monday, on Monday, I will be going over the pretest. That'll take probably most of the period. We'll see where we are at that time. Tomorrow, Friday, will be a lab day. I'm not going to tape anything, but I am going to send you an email that's going to have an attachment in it that will have the pretest. All right, so with that, I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a great rest of the day.